Welcome to our Miracle Monday class. My name is Reverend Lisa Windsor. I am the founder of Modern Miracles Academy, and a very, very warm welcome. So we are all about sharing and learning and living the teachings of A Course in Miracles. And what I suggest for anyone, wherever you are on this path, if you are a beginner, if you are an advanced student, what I suggest is you actually go into a space of practicing while you listen to these calls. What that means is you're going to relax, and you're going to relax quite deeply, actually. And you're going to make an attempt to stop your mind from trying to learn and trying to understand what's happening. Because the mind is going to want to start to work. It's like, I get that. I don't understand that. What is she talking about? It wants to get involved. What I want you to do is listen on a deeper level. You relax and you let what you need to hear simply and gracefully just land in your heart, in your awareness. It usually lands through some type of resonance for you. And it's okay if you just come away with like one word, one statement, one idea that really, really met you in the space where you are, would answered your prayer, your question. It helped you with that next step that you have to take. When we work collectively, which is a speed up because we're working in group, there is sometimes information that isn't actually for you because it's collective. And so when you relax, you can actually let some of it just go right through. Some of it will just not land. You're not hearing it clearly. Let it go. And I assure you that what you are meant to hear, you will hear. What you are meant to take with you, you will take with you. The other thing is that I send out the recordings. If you're signed up for Miracle Mondays at our website at modernmiracles.com, I send out the recordings every second Sunday, and I absolutely recommend that this is the kind of call that you might listen to a couple of times. So you might come onto the call and then you might even just let it wash over your mind again. And again, that's when the teachings that are meant for you right now in the space that you are, A Course in Miracles always meets us right where we're at in the perfect timing, and it will speak to you. It's not any different for when you read the course. So it's really the same process that in Modern Miracles, we learn to read with presence. We learn to read almost in a meditative way and not with the brain trying to figure it all out. As you'll find, you're going to hit roadblocks with these teachings because they're very deep and they're very on a level kind of heady and intellectual. And we're actually meeting you on the heart level, or on the deeper mind level, in the right mind. Where the right mind, our right minds already know the truth. So you can relax. There's a part of you that totally understands and knows exactly what to take today. Okay? So lots of trust. So the other thing is that during this period of time right now, we are moving through the 50 miracle principles in A Course in Miracles. There are 50 miracle principles at the beginning of the text of A Course in Miracles. And they're very deep. And as I've shared before, I have, read them many, many, many times, and I've never slowed down to really take my time with them like we are doing right now. So I'm right here in the classroom with you, just really opening up to the Spirit's message and guidance for how we are meant to receive these teachings. And today we're talking about Miracle Principles 21 to 25, but it does not matter if you're getting them in order. It doesn't matter if you're just starting today. What you need to hear will be obvious to you. Again, just stay relaxed and open. Now, the other thing that kind of came clear for me today, which I love this idea, is that there's a lesson, it's actually lesson 76 in A Course in Miracles. And if any of you started on January 1st, you'll be on this lesson today. And it says, I am under no laws but God's. I am under no laws but God's. And it talks about how like the world has so many rules and so many laws that we feel like obligated to live by. And the course comes along and says, listen, like those aren't the laws. Those aren't real laws. Those are made up by the ego. And like you're really actually under no laws but the laws of God. So what's interesting is that the Holy Spirit really spoke to me today to say, you're studying God's law when you study the miracle principles. It's like, oh, like we're actually like studying the laws of God because miracles are under the laws of God. The process of true forgiveness is under the laws of God. The plan of atonement is under the laws of God. And so these are the things that we are actually deepening in. The other thing is that there was this invitation by Jesus. And Jesus is just one of our inner teachers in A Course in Miracles. If that's triggering for you, just use the Holy Spirit or use a name that works for you. Do not worry. Um, that kind of comes with time. Again, there's a lot of the undoing of judgment and the opening to this pathway. So you'll hear me talk about Jesus, but just be patient here again in listening for what's for you today. So Jesus was saying, imagine that on this call, you are entering a new world. Like we in the course, it talks about the real world. It talks about the happy dream. It talks about like really another dimension in a way, like the real world, and then there's like the ego's world or the false world of separation. And he said, imagine you've come to the real world and you're in the classroom in the real world and they're teaching you the laws of the real world, right? This is all that's happening, that you're learning the laws of the real world. And you might not really understand all the laws to begin with. And you might not understand how it all works because you've been living in a different world, in a different culture, in a different space and place, that you had your own rules, your own set of rules. But you've been told that these rules are like what you're meant to live your life by now. So you come and you're open. Almost in other words, learning a new set of rules, learning a new set of laws, and almost like learning a new languaging for it all, right? So we're going to be just taking that in because when we come to lessons like I am under no laws but God's, you might even ask the question, what are God's laws? Well, God's laws are miracles. God's laws are forgiveness. God's laws are his plan for our salvation. That's what we're living under when we live under these teachings. And A Course in Miracles teaches us the laws of God, and it actually has us move into that space through its teachings. Okay, so we are in the real world. We're in the classroom. We've entered the classroom. We have the most amazing teachers. Holy Spirit and Jesus are with us. They are saying to us, you're learning new laws to abide by, to live by, to think by. And here we go. Let's learn some principles today. We'll learn them together. I'll share the principle and then I'll talk about it, okay? So as I said, we're going to start with miracle principle 21, right at the top here. This one says, miracles are natural signs of forgiveness. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending it to others. Miracles are natural signs of forgiveness. Through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness by extending it to others. So one of the significant things on this miracle principle is this is actually the first time that forgiveness is mentioned in A Course in Miracles. So here it is, right in the first section of the first chapter, and it's significant because forgiveness is a foundation of the course. So it's introducing forgiveness for the first time. And of course, ultimately, it's going to reveal its central role in the awakening. Now, before I take this down and just share with you, I just want you to notice this one part where it says, through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness. So something to keep in mind is that God does not forgive us, okay? Because God knows who we are as perfect love. And he has never had anything to forgive. He's always held us in the truth of who we are. So one of the ways that you could translate this statement is to say one of two things. Through miracles, you accept God's love by extending it to others. So through miracles, you accept his love by extending it to others. The other way that you could look at it is through miracles, you accept God's forgiveness process because he gives us the forgiveness process so that we can wake up to what he sees as our perfection. So we accept God's forgiveness process, the means he's given us to wake up by extending it to others, by extending that forgiveness to others. Okay. So that's just a little nuance, but people say, oh, God's got to forgive me. Absolutely not. We have to do the forgiveness work. God has not, we do not, but we do have to accept his love, and we do need to accept the means he has given us to wake up, which is through miracles and through forgiveness. Okay, so what else do I want to say about this principle? Let's see. Yeah, and there's actually like a statement in the course that says something like, God does not forgive because he has never condemned. Like if he's never condemned us, there's nothing to forgive, right? It says that his love is eternal, it is forever. And of course, that being that, there's nothing for him to forgive. However, in the illusion of separation, in the illusion of this world, we believe in guilt, right? We believe in attack. We believe in sin. So forgiveness becomes the process. It becomes the means that actually undoes the illusions, and it restores our awareness to God's love. So forgiveness restores our awareness to that love, which is perfect. Okay. So what we could say too is that miracles are signs of forgiveness, because they reveal that nothing real has ever happened, or we could say that nothing real has ever been harmed. So miracles are signs of forgiveness. When a miracle happens, you can know, you will just know that forgiveness has happened. Okay, they're really actually one and the same, and I'll explain that in a minute as well. Forgiveness in A Course in Miracles is not like the definition we use in the world. It's actually about seeing beyond illusion, and it's about seeing the unchanging truth, the absolute love beyond all forms and beyond all illusions. So when we accept a miracle, we are actually accepting the truth that guilt is not real, and that we are actually accepting the truth that only love is real. And that knowing that love naturally will then extend to others. So in this miracle principle, it's saying like that through forgiveness, the miracles will naturally extend to others. Absolutely. Love, God's love, it is extension itself. It cannot be contained or limited. Okay. So when we have that love within us, it naturally extends to others. It kind of can link us a little bit to Miracle Principle 6, where it was talking about miracles should become habits. And that kind of means that forgiveness should really become a way of life, right? Like it just becomes a way of thinking, it becomes our process for the way that we're healing actually everything that we face. We heal it with forgiveness. And the more we practice, the more natural the process becomes. I will say that absolutely. It becomes more and more easy to release the grievances, to release the judgments, and to see the love beyond all of that, beyond all the upsets. Okay, so other thing I want to say. Oh yeah. So miracles, if we look at these 4 words, miracles, forgiveness, atonement, and I'll talk more about atonement a little bit later, but stay with me. Miracles, forgiveness, atonement, and healing, they are all aspects of the same shift from fear to love. They are all aspects of the same shift from being in a state of fear, in a state of mind of fear, to shifting to a state of mind which is aligned with love. So there are actually quite a few words in A Course in Miracles that become interchangeable. Okay, so they're really highlighting that same process, that shift from fear to love. And we like to say that miracles demonstrate the law. So here we're going to talk about the law of God, the law of giving and receiving. And the law for God is that giving and receiving are one and the same. Giving and receiving are one. What we offer to another, we strengthen in ourselves. When we extend kindness to another, that kindness is for us as well. Ultimately, what we're learning is that we are all one. So what we give, we receive. And what is received from God is then given. It's all just this beautiful, like perfect cycle of love that's just being exchanged. It also teaches us that we are channels of miracles, right? So like when our mind is open and the Holy Spirit has access to the mind and we have cleared the grievances through forgiveness, that love and that miracle extends right through our mind and is shared with others. Not to mention, when it comes through, it is for our mind first and then extends out to others, which is so beautiful. That means that what we give, we already have. We have received it for ourselves and then we have it to share. That's what I always say about this path is so kind because it's so inclusive. There's no sacrifice here. We actually have to receive the gift for us to share it and extend it. And when whatever we offer to others, we then strengthen in ourselves. We're channels of the miracles, and we become the instrument of the healing in the world. Our minds become in the service of the plan for healing. They become instruments of extending God's love. And then there's a sweet lesson in the course that forgiveness is the key to happiness. Forgiveness is the key to happiness. When we release judgment, we clear the mind and we open up for the experience of miracles. Our mind is freed and we experience happiness and we no longer experience suffering. So this principle, again, number 21, also kind of links to miracle principle number 5, which talks about the fact that miracles are natural. If they don't occur, something has gone wrong. So we're really kind of getting into that space where under the laws of God, miracles, not only are we entitled to miracles, but they're actually natural parts of the healing. And they are totally linked with the process of forgiveness. Okay, again, one more time. Miracles, forgiveness, atonement, and healing are all the process in place in the mind to correct our belief in separation. Okay, it is a natural process of correction. That's why even when we come into these spaces, we learn to relax because actually the correction happens very naturally if we would just not interfere. just don't try to do anything. Just let it actually occur. It's actually happening. The grievances, the upsets, the ego gets exposed and it goes to the light where it gets corrected. And we are learning to like allow for that process to happen. Let the miracles flow naturally through our own mind and then be extended to others. Okay. Yeah, and it's like love reaches to love. That's what naturally happens. And we are actually truly and like we are perfect love. So when we clear away these obstacles, we start to see that love just reaches to love. Like that's what's happening with the miracles. Okay, let's move on to miracle principle number 22. Let's see what Jesus has to talk about for our next kind of law, the laws that we are learning about these principles. So he says here that miracles are associated with fear only because of the belief that darkness can hide. You believe that what your physical eyes cannot see does not exist. And this leads to a denial of spiritual sight. Miracles are associated with fear only because of the belief that darkness can hide. You believe that what your physical eyes cannot see does not exist, which leads to a denial of spiritual sight. Okay, now just looking at that, as I'm looking at it, I just want to point to just even the contrast between the physical eyes and the spiritual sight. This is what he's talking about the laws of the world versus the laws of God. In the laws of the world, we believe that the physical eyes, only what the physical eyes can see is real and exists. And under the laws of God, he's saying that spiritual sight will show you what is real. And it has nothing actually to do with the physical eyes and the physical sight. So that's a huge contrast between the laws of seeing, like just the laws of seeing. The ego, the world tells us you see with your eyes, with the body's eyes, and the Holy Spirit and Jesus are teaching the eyes are blind. They do not see. Okay, that's a very different law. As we step into this classroom of the real world, we're going, oh my gosh, we are literally changing the way that we see. Like we're no longer using these body's eyes as the faculties for seeing. Okay, we need to we need to rest into this classroom for a little longer. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big deal. So now I'm gonna, this gets into the metaphysics. I am teaching a course on the metaphysics right now, and eventually I will tell you, you need to go deep with the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles. It's very, very helpful. So just hold steady through this description of things. You may not understand it, and that's perfectly okay. But basically, the ego, that part of the mind that believes that we've separated from God, the ego tells us that deep inside of us, we are sinful and guilty. And if people saw the truth about us, if they saw the truth about us, the sin, the guilt within us, they would reject us. So to protect ourselves on the level of the world, to protect our self-concept, we use a couple of defenses that are very powerful. One is the defense of denial. Basically, we pretend there is no guilt and sin inside of us, right? We think, oh, there's no guilt and sin. We just deny that that's true. And the other one is projection, where we blame others instead. So instead of looking and seeing the guilt and fear there, we actually take it and we hide it in others by projecting it and blaming them. So it kind of creates this illusion, because we believe the ego when it told us that we were sinful and guilty, that that the darkness has to hide. Like we have to hide the darkness. Otherwise, we're going to be rejected. God will find us. God will be upset with us because we separated off from him. Like there's a lot of guilt and shame associated with all of this. But the thing is that hiding the guilt, projecting the guilt, denying the guilt does not heal it in any way. It actually holds the guilt in place and even strengthens our belief in the guilt. So that's why when it says that miracles are associated with fear only because of the belief that darkness can hide, what do miracles do? Miracles expose the guilt and the sin, the belief in that. Miracles are all about exposing the darkness and bringing it to the light. That's why there's a fear of actually even moving in towards the healing. Because when we open up to this, all of a sudden we realize that everything that we've been working to deny and to project and to repress is starting to come up to surface. And we have been taught that if anyone would see that, we are going to be rejected. No one will love us. We are going to be thrown out of the kingdom. That gets over. Now, we need Jesus and Holy Spirit, and we need each other to reinforce. No, no, no. All of that, all of those beliefs, all of those thoughts, they are actually surfacing because they are meant to be forgiven. They are meant to shift into a miracle, that there's a miracle behind them if you would let them come up. But we associate, do you see how we associate fear with miracles? Because we believe that we can hide the darkness away. And so if the miracle brings up the darkness, that really makes us afraid, right? That really makes us afraid. So then the other thing I want to say about this is that when it says things like, you believe that what your physical eyes cannot see does not exist, the ego convinces us that if we don't acknowledge something, it isn't real. And A Course in Miracles warns us, it says, defenses do what they would defend, which means that the more that we defend something, the more we strengthen the fear of it. So the more we defend the guilt through denial, projection, repression, the more we strengthen our belief in it, the more we are afraid of it. The ego then teaches us, if you drop your defenses, you will be destroyed. You will be rejected. You will be, you will face the wrath. And so we hold the defenses and we go, forget miracles. We're just going to work with what the body's eyes see. and we're going to work with that's what we think is real. And we get caught in suffering and pain and the guilt. It all just, we're just caught in it all because nothing, it's all being held instead of being released and healed. The Holy Spirit teaches the opposite. He says, if you drop your defenses, you will free your mind and you will be free. So one of the laws of God that you're going to find in A Course in Miracles is, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. Again, in the real world, you're learning, oh, no defenses here. Nope, 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 no defenses. Drop your defenses. Drop your defenses and let the darkness, let the idea of sin, the idea of guilt come up now for healing, for forgiveness, so the miracles can take place. Right? That is the law of God. In my defenselessness, I am safe. I am home. So the truth is, we can't hide from guilt, but we can undo it. We can't hide from it. We can hold it. We can attempt to hide from it. We can try to deny it for a certain period of time. We can try and blame it on other people. It doesn't go anywhere. We're stuck with it. We're caught in it. But we can undo it by bringing it to the light through forgiveness. Right? We can allow it to come up. We do not want to deny our spiritual sight. When we're trapped in the belief that only what is real is what the body's eye sees, we literally block our ability to see the healing. We block the ability to see God, because God is perfect love. God is perfect love. God is the light. God all of our sight happens on the level of our mind. Spiritual sight is on the level of our mind. We see through the mind. And so we're able to see past the body's eyes. We're able to see past the form. We're able to see to the light of truth beyond it. So true vision, it's not about seeing with the body's eyes. It's about seeing with the Holy Spirit's perception. It's about joining with the Holy Spirit and letting ourselves look through the lens of his vision, which shows us the love and the light that's there. It shows us that there's no guilt and sin. It shows us that you just move right beyond it to the light of truth. Right? It shows us the miracle. So when we embrace miracles, we begin to see beyond all those appearances. We begin to see beyond the physical, and we recognize the innocence and the love in ourselves and in others when we allow spiritual sight to actually guide the way that we see. So miracles will ultimately restore our spiritual vision and restore our spiritual sight. And they are going to reveal the truth that we are already forgiven, that we are already whole, that we are already healed. So it's an important one, actually, to say, gosh, like this exchange for physical sight and spiritual sight, and you can't hold both of them. It's okay if the body's eyes record separation, but it's like, what are you really looking with? What are you really seeing with? Okay. Let's go on to the next principle, which is number, 23. Okay, so miracles rearrange perception and place all levels in true perspective. This is healing because sickness comes from confusing the levels. Miracles rearrange perception and place all levels in true perspective. This is healing because sickness comes from confusing the levels. I'm just going to say something quite brief about this one. It's actually, just about a confusion that we hold. And this is, again, the world's laws versus the laws of God. So the way that the world or the ego distorts our perception is by confusing the level of body and mind. And the ego will tell us that all of our problems originate in the physical world. So we could see our problems on the level of the bodies, relationships, finances, external circumstances, rather than the problem being on the level of our mind. So, and we know that when we're experiencing any kind of pain, stress, or sickness, we're often searching for external solutions, a cure, a fix, a change in the circumstances, when the real sickness is actually on the level of the mind. And actually, when we're talking about the metaphysics, it stems from our belief that we've separated from God. That's the real sickness, that we believe that we've separated from God. The ego is hell-bent on distracting us from looking at the truth and looking within toward the mind where the actual problem and the solution are. And so you can see that there's such a fixation on the body and on external conditions so that we never look within and heal the cause. So what we're doing is we're looking at how the miracle, it wants to restore where the true cause is of not only the problem, but also the solution. And it's going to rearrange perception by placing the levels in right order. It's going to tell us that the body is neutral. It merely follows the mind's directives. So if the mind is associated with ego, we'll look at the body through the ego's perception. And if it's associated with spirit, we'll look at it and see it that it's a communication device for extending love. We'll see it in that sight. It tells us that sickness is not of the body, it is of the mind. It is the belief that we've separated from God. And that healing happens actually on the level of the mind. And so that's when we choose forgiveness and we choose miracles and we release the guilt. We release the belief in sin. We release the belief in separation. And that leads to the healing. Just a little remembrance. The miracle is not about fixing the body. It's actually shifting and correcting our perception of the body. And so that's actually where true healing occurs. Again, true healing happens on the level of our mind. And when we remember this, like when we remember that we can turn within and see the problem and bring the problem to the answer, bring the ego to the answer of the Holy Spirit, that's when healing occurs, right? We heal. We want to heal, right? So again, we're going away from the laws of the world that say you've got to stay fixated on the world and the problems and the solutions out there. And we're coming within and we're saying, what is happening on the level of my perception? What is happening on the level of my mind? Am I willing to work miracles? Am I willing to work process of forgiveness to come to an experience of true healing? Okay, let's go on to the next one. Miracle Principle 24. Miracles enable you to heal the sick and raise the dead. Because you made sickness and death yourself, you can therefore abolish both. You are a miracle capable of creating in the likeness of your creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real. Deep breath. Deep breath. Right? Yeah. Miracles enable you to heal the sick and raise the dead because you made sickness and death yourself and can therefore abolish both. You are a miracle, capable of creating in the likeness of your creator. Everything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. Only the creations of light are real. Okay, so it kind of relates to what I was just saying. The laws of sickness and death, we made up to reinforce the belief in separation. We made those up to reinforce the belief that we are bodies. And because it is this we have done, we have made this up, it is actually this we can undo. Right? We can actually undo the belief in sickness and death. These are all false ideas in the mind. And when they're brought to the Holy Spirit for forgiveness, we experience the miracle. Again, this is our own nightmare. This is a dream of separation that we're experiencing. It tells us that only the creations of light are real, and that is anything created by God. We are the miracle. We are the light. We are the love. We are created in the likeness of God. And so we can overcome the world. And because we can overcome the world, because it is not real, it's not our home. So I think it's just important to remember, again, that this really isn't about like healing the body or even like the idea of like, oh, I want to actually like raise the dead and I want to heal the sick. It really is happening on the level of our mind, right? That's what actually is occurring. The Holy Spirit doesn't heal the body. He heals the mind that believes in guilt and separation, which are true causes of sickness and suffering and the belief in death. The miracle corrects the mind that has identified with the body and its perceived vulnerabilities, again, sickness and death. When the mind is healed, the body no longer needs to reflect that suffering. But if it seems to reflect that level of sickness or death, it when your mind is in right order and you know that you are the spirit and you know that your brother is spirit and you remember the Christ and you remember the real world, we allow for the playing out of sickness. We allow for the playing out of conflict in the world. We allow for the playing out of death in the world because we know that that is not true. We know it's not the world, that the world is not real and it is not our home. And, I think part of this is like associating us with like, you are created in the likeness of God. We are not bodies. We are spirit. We are eternal and unchangeable. We are just as God himself, that perfect love. And our function is to extend that love. And everything outside of love, the fear, the sickness, the suffering, and even the death, is just a part of that nightmare we made up. I want to talk a little bit about this because it says A Course in Miracles is not about forcing ourselves to wake up, by the way. We don't wake up instantly with A Course in Miracles for the most part. We don't instantly wake up from the dream of separation because actually that would really terrify us. We're very immersed in this belief in this dream and this being our reality. So there is a slow curriculum of awakening that happens. But what happens in it is that we end up shifting from this experience of a nightmare to a happy dream, to the real world. And the happy dream means that we're living in the world without projecting any more guilt, without projecting any fear onto ourselves or anyone else. That we still experience the world of form, but we no longer believe it is our reality. And that we live with peace and trust and joy in the Holy, we trust in the Holy Spirit's guidance rather than trusting in like that fear and suffering and sickness and death is what we have to stay connected to. It also says that the final awakening, the final step, is what God takes for us. And so we get to this point where we've just committed our life to forgiveness. We come to this place of undoing the ego, and then God takes the final step and wakes us fully up to the awareness of our home. Right? So, and in a lot of levels, it's like there's no rush. Again, like we can relax because the healing is taking place. We just want to learn to not interfere, and like I like the word interfere because it always makes me think of enter fear. We just don't want to enter the fear of the ego, right? We want to step back and let him lead the way. We'll let the love lead the way. Okay, our final principle for today is number 25. It says miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which when completed is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all the dimensions of time. Miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness, which when completed is the atonement. Atonement works all the time and in all the dimensions of time. So the principle for this one reveals to us that each miracle actually that we accept is part of a larger plan. The undoing of separation and the return to God. So the plan of the atonement is two things, actually. It represents the overall plan of the acceptance that the separation never occurred, the overall plan that takes place for the awakening. And it's a collective plan. That's the plan of the atonement. The atonement also represents our individual plan in the atonement, that every aspect of the mind has a particular curriculum of forgiveness and miracles that have to occur in the overall plan. So we all have our individual plan of atonement that we accept the correction, we accept the remembrance that we have never separated from God. And then the atonement is that when we've all accepted that, then we wake up in God. And that is like the collective plan. When the Course talks about an interlocking chain of forgiveness, miracles, they are like an interlocking chain of forgiveness. In contrast, the ego teaches this world is made up of an interlocking chain of problems. And we often experience that. We've solved one problem and we get the next one and the next one and the next one. Imagine if we're looking through a lens and we say miracles form an interlocking chain of forgiveness, that miracle after miracle after miracle, that the mind just keeps correcting every problem that we would perceive because it's correcting it on the level of the mind where it is, where the cause truly is. And we are now experiencing an interlocking chain of forgiveness, an interlocking chain of miracles. That is what comes. That is the happy dream. And it happens so naturally, right? It becomes more and more natural as we practice. It becomes easier and easier to practice the forgiveness. We become less fearful of the miracles and more willing to turn within and trust the Holy Spirit and Jesus to guide our way. So I love that. I love shifting from an interlocking chain of problems to an interlocking chain of forgiveness and of miracles. Like that just feels like so incredibly important. And then the last thing I'll say about this is that the atonement works on all levels of time. And this has been touched upon in other miracle principles. It collapses time, past, present, and future. It's working, it goes beyond all linear time because again, under the laws of God, there is no linear time. There's the holy instant, there is the forever now. And so when we work miracles under the laws of God, time is collapsed, time is abolished, time is used in right purpose to actually ripple past, future, out in every direction to heal the mind. And so it's really miraculous, to be honest, what happens when we open to the miracles, because this is just, they're just not bound by time. I think that would be a good way to remember that the miracle is not bound by the laws of linear time, and that miracles correct errors past, present, future simultaneously. Okay, those are our 5 miracle principles. And yes, we're working the laws of God. I think it's so incredibly important. I love seeing the miracle principles through this lens and saying, God, teach me about your law. Teach me about your law. He works with eternity, not time. He works with mind, not body. He works with spirit, not form. He's working on every level. He works with miracles, not medicine, not magic, as the Course calls it. He's working all of these principles and all of these laws, and he's asking us, you are under no laws but God's. Will you accept them? Right? And so we're learning this. We're all in the classroom learning this together. We're entitled to miracles, and we're meant to be miracle workers. This is a course in miracles. We need to know all about the principles of miracles. It's very, very important. So I am sending you all such a loving blessing. And again, remembering, I'm going to send out the recording, and I really recommend that you let this wash through your mind again. I always listen to the recording of these and just let it wash over my mind again, just receiving and accepting what's for me. And if you're interested in joining Miracle Mondays, if you are interested in A Course in Miracles and really exploring this path, I encourage you to go to our website at www.modernmiracles.com, and you can explore what we have to offer there. So thank you again for your presence, and sending all the blessings and love.